every day I'm finding a new way to kind of deal with what's coming out in the news, what we're being told to do, especially for me in terms of what I do with my business, how I open my business. And I just want to ask each of you, like, how are you dealing? What things are you doing to help you deal with all the transitions that we're facing? Because it is a common experience we're all having, and I think we're all learning to deal with it in our own ways. So I'm interested to ask you what you're doing to deal with it. So share.
Go ahead.
I
know you want me to go first. Yeah. Well, certainly at first through this whole journey, I was so scared at first, right? Like just realizing, like not having any clue what this was and what was going on, glued to the TV and the news and listening to everything so intensely. And then as time went on, getting confused by the news and getting frustrated by the news and feeling like, I don't feel like we're at the root of it or the heart of it yet. So my answer to that feeling of confusion was to take a deep dive into learning more about the history of coronaviruses and the history of all of this, and trying to find other scientists and other people who were talking about it differently than what the news was, because it just didn't jive with me. I didn't feel it. So I spent way too much time doing that, and I ignored my children, and they watched a lot of Mr. Beast on YouTube, and they started talking like Mr. Beast on YouTube. Did you know he is like
I don't even know who that.
I don't know who he is either. I cannot believe the amount of subscribers and followers. Like, it told me so much about what that generation is listening to and where their information comes from.
Right.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Wow.
Sorry. And so, but then even that got to be a little bit overwhelming, because it got frustrating and so I started to pay attention to how much time I was spending. I need to watch another video. I need to listen. I need to read another article. I need to understand something, because of that feeling of insecurity of what's going on. And I don't like to feel insecure, and I don't like to have not made a decision about how something, like what the deal is with this. I can't live with that just unknown and insecurity. I needed to come to an understanding scientifically what this is and how I could hang my hat on something and then move about my life. So a couple weeks ago, I think I started to have my own picture of, okay, I can live with this piece about what it is right now and what's happened, and moving forward. And that like making a decision until I have new evidence, I'm going with this story, and I'm going to stop the rabbit holes of researching, because it's taking up an enormous amount of time and it's making me really uncomfortable. So one of the things I've done is to just keep asking myself, whatever I do, how does this make me feel? Is it helping? Is it creating calm, or is it creating more confusion? And then I'm trying to calm that confusion all day, or I'm noticing that I'm short with my kids, or I'm craving foods or doing things. Like, I try to keep noticing how it's affecting me. And sometimes I know, like, ooh, I should go do a yoga video, or I should go for a walk, or I should do these things that I know might help me, but I just want to research, and I just want to find out more, and so I'm trying to work with that urge and impulse that I know is good on one hand, but the rabbit hole-ness of it on the other hand is detrimental to me.
I found that a little bit too. Like, I wanted to know so much about it, like, and just my nature, like, when there's something I don't know, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
So I'll research it. And then I found too that I was just getting into that really, like, anxiety was starting to overtake me. And so I tried to go back to what I know works for me, and that's, finding the calm, like letting that whirlwind go around you, and then withdrawing from that and just being like, what's right for me?
What's your practical way of doing that?
So,
how do you find the calm?
It's not perfect, as these ladies probably know as well. Some days it's just so overwhelming, but so it becomes a discipline, and that's really what it is. And so my step is I try to come into a meditation, which is not, everyone thinks meditation and like levitating off the ground and like seeing all these visuals. It's not. It's actually just connecting to my breath, and it's like following my breath in and my body, and just taking those deeper breaths, just naturally in the physiology of your body, just takes you into a calmer place. And then from there, I find calm, and then from calm, I can find myself or find rationality.
Yeah.
So that is what I would do as a discipline. Some days that doesn't work, and so I happen to know the steps, how to get myself out of that beta brain, that like really busy brain that's goal oriented, discovering why this is and all this stuff. So that goal oriented brain into like alpha waves basically, and beta waves.
It's
So
a stress response brain, right? Like
it is. So
it's not
like,
just your head, it's your whole body saying.
Right. So then in those days, I actually have a discipline I do, and that is to listen to a yoga nidra meditation, which systematically takes you through the movement from beta waves into alpha and theta waves. So it's not magic. It's just like, it's how your brain works, and it takes me there when I'm not able to just quiet myself. So I actually have a system, I guess I would say, that I have to
plan.
I do, but it is hard in your day-to-day and interacting with people. Like you do need to find the time for yourself to just be able to do that, to replenish. And we don't do that enough at all in our society to honor that and to acknowledge that we must do that. So that's where you see these people, like in myself, sleep issues, when I have sleep issues, or when I want to eat a Twix for breakfast. Ding, 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 yes. When I want to eat that Twix for breakfast, but I feel like I am so busy, all I can do is eat this Twix for breakfast. No, because I also want to eat that Twix for breakfast. So I'm really looking to carry for some.
How do you healthify Twix?
All right. Well, there's a recipe for me to play with. Right.
Exactly.
I haven't had a Twix, and gosh, I can't remember the last time I had a Twix, but they are delicious.
They are.
I remember.
Delicious, but let me tell you, by about 2 hours later, I'm like, no, that was not the right choice, Shelley. But I'm gonna still do that. I'm sure even in terms of discipline, I'm not perfect. I work towards it. That's the acknowledgement of knowing it's discipline. I mean, people are really afraid of the word discipline, I think, in a lot of ways, because it seems authoritarian, I would guess. So maybe I shouldn't use that word so
I feel
much.
like it's a bit of making a choice, which feels very empowering to me. Like I choose not to just put myself on the roller coaster and just take the ride down the hole of feeling like crap all day. I choose to try to do something to shift it back. But I also know that depending on how intense the emotions are and how overwhelmed I feel, it may take me all day or into the next day to actually get it. Like it may be
or 2
numerous
days,
times.
or 4 days.
Especially if I still have to like perform in my day. Like if I'm still having to do things and meet demands and whatever, I may get one little breath thing in or one little something that's going to help, but it doesn't totally cut it. Like it's going to be, but I give myself that space that, okay, this one's big, it's going to take me all day, no problem. Like, don't try to do anything super creative today because it's not going to happen until I get to the calm place or get to the, just feeling back to myself. Back to, again.
I'd say I probably have leaned more on your side, Shelley, of how I've kind of dealt with it with moments of what you're doing. So a little bit in between. So now we're 4 months into it, and definitely been on a roller coaster ride of emotions and dealing with it in different ways. So when it first started, and there was the confusion and, a bit of the freak out. But at the same time, my day-to-day life didn't feel very different for me personally, because I'm used to I work out at home, I work from home. My husband was still going into the office, so I still, home still felt the same. The only thing that really changed for me was social life, which then went on Zoom, and which was lovely to have, but at the same time I got zoomed out, as I'm sure many people have felt.
It's hard.
So, but what how I took it was a bit of a retreat in a sense, and I just said, I feel like I'm needing a break.
Yeah.
I'm,
I did feel that too.
So busy and go. And I'm seeing this as, it's time to
No
just go
obligations.
inwards. And no obligations. And I was really in need of that break. So that's kind of how I took it.
It's interesting, Amanda, because I remember a conversation we had early on through this where we were kind of like, I kind of like this little break and this rhyming word. Like, I like some kind of having my quiet time and my like cocoon.
Yeah.
Were
you not expected to be anywhere or do anything? Yeah, I agree. That was especially with kids, it was easy to be like, oh good, I don't have to like plan so much for them or anything. It's just literally stay home. Yeah.
But then you're right, I think it had stages, right? And so at what point did you kind of transition from that stage into the next stage? Like,
what's going on?
I think after it was going on for so long, and then I just actually it was when you shared that Zach Bush podcast when he was interviewed on the High Wire. It was listening to that, and it just brought what's happening in this virus into a different perspective. It was offering a different perspective because I do limit myself. I always do limit myself with the amount of media information that I take in because it's drained, because I am a very emotional person. And so I can take it on and then it affects me emotionally. So I'm always very guarded in how much I take in and the times of day that I take it in and all of that stuff. I already have those kinds of things in place. So when you shared that and I listened to a different perspective, it's like, oh, there's other thoughts and there's other ideas. And so then I went down the rabbit hole. And then I got a bit consumed in that. And then I started to get a little bit angry and frustrated and all those. So then I had to deal with all those emotions. And that's where yoga and meditation as well comes in handy for me to like calm down, get grounded, get centered. And I just kind of say to myself, like, how are you in this moment? I'm safe. In this moment, I'm safe. I'm okay. All right. Like, get grounded in that. Okay. Now go at it again. And if I get into that chaotic moment, okay, hold on, stop. Ground. Are you okay?
That can have to happen like so many times for me to like connect into it, right? It's not just like a
for sure
thing, right?
Absolutely. It is totally moment by moment, because next thing you know, you go and do groceries and then you're feeling overwhelmed again.
Well, pick up everybody's energy in the grocery store.
I like to like jokingly look at these moments. It's kind of joking, but kind of like it's an opportunity. So those moments where it brings up those things in you. So I joke actually with my husband about it. I'm like, I've had lots of opportunity for growth through this, right? Because those moments where you're feeling those negative emotions come up from something, it's like, or something someone does or says, it's like sitting with it and why am I feeling this way?
Why is this thing such a big deal?
Because it's always about me. Because people can say lots of things. Why would it resonate? Why would this thing resonate with me? And sitting with why it does and working through that myself. And it's the same thing about finding that center in the story that I was talking about before. It's connecting to myself. What do I need to learn from this? And then being able to withstand the barrage, as I call it, right? Like withstand the barrage of whatever it is that doesn't seem to fit with your core. Knowing what is in your core and being okay with that,
right?
And then whatever words come at you or whatever ideas come at you that don't sit with who you are, then I actually try to visualize them floating over me or floating past me. So if it's something that doesn't sit with me, if I've sat with myself and been like, I know what is right for me, then I let it actually a visualization of it floating over me and around me.
The right thing. The thing that's right for you, or the thing
the
you want
things
to let
that
go of?
don't, like so words that come at me, or ideas that come at me, or actions that come at me. It's like let it float over you without permeating. If that makes sense, it's a visualization I do. I don't know if that makes sense for other people, but it works for me.
And can you think of anything like specific that happened through this Corona time that was like a learning thing for you?
probably some things are controversial.
But I think
in
that,
the story.
but that's okay, because if you, it's kind of what I'm trying to do with masks.
Yeah.
It's a controversial subject,
Yeah.
and you're going to be on one side or the other. But how can you, like, how can you make it not crazy for you?
Some of it is political.
Yeah.
Like, I have to say, some of it is
This whole thing is very political.
And I have certain truths. I don't know why necessarily they're my truths.
Yeah.
Part of the way I was raised, part of who I've become. And there's certain fundamental, so this is kind of what I've looked at myself. What are my fundamental truths?
Yeah.
And my fundamental truths aren't going to be the same as yours or yours, because we each have different experiences or different things that are manifest for this life, if that makes sense. And so I find the current political culture very, very overwhelming. And there's so much negative, and I'm very worried about the world. And when those things come at me, like, so for me, I'll just talk personally, like, one of my true things is advocating for those who are like
can't do it for themselves.
Can't do it for themselves, are vulnerable. It's the vulnerable. And I feel
suffering people around you.
Right. So I feel like right now, more than ever, and again, my politics is going to come out as I say this, but I feel like right now more than ever, the vulnerable are more vulnerable in the entire world. Like, things that have been going on,
I think
now,
everyone feels that.
just with the shift that's happened, and I feel like no one, like, so people who are pursuing power in the world right now, all those things, like, it's left people very vulnerable. More journalists have been imprisoned in the last 4 years, and the preceding 10. You know, what I think about what's happening with the Muslim population in China, like, these things, like, when I read about it, it can overwhelm me.
Totally, I feel the same way.
You know? And so I just think I feel helpless sometimes in those situations, like, what do I do? Often I think some people have a more strong way of presenting their ideas.
They're just bold people. They can just speak it, and they don't seem to care what other people think around them.
And that is not my nature.
It's
my
not
nature
a lot of people.
Is to always see both sides, and even like for any issue, I will always read both sides.
And you don't want people to be mad at you. I don't want people to be mad at me. I don't want to go through the experience of people being mad at me.
So
But this is it. I think you're, like, at the heart of it here. Like, this is, so many people are experiencing this because it's cutting to core root things that are personal beliefs, our core values that we hold. And if somebody displays a different core value, it strikes hard.
How do you bring those things together again to be that our souls can connect again?
Because the reality is we have to move forward as a community here together. Like, we can't get divorced and just live in separate places.
And you know, the strange thing is, I think we actually share, like, a love of humanity. And I think that why can't we? I guess my question that I struggle with is, why can't we all find that?
Because our solutions to making it better sometimes are so different.
Right.
Like, there can be such opposite ends of the spectrum. Well, I think we should do this with money. I think we should do this with healthcare. I think we should. But the end goal is really, who doesn't want to see less suffering and the vulnerable
But
supported?
I have to say, I feel like, and this is, like, I think that there are people who don't want to see less suffering. And then it's, that's really hard to see. And then and then where it's divided is, like, this side thinks it's these powers that are causing suffering, and this side thinks these powers are causing suffering, and it's like, well, what can we cut through that? How do we cut through that and get to the solution where we just have less suffering? How do we get there?
And I think that's part of what we're doing here is we're trying to help build resilience in people. Because if you as an individual, me as an individual, if I have my own ability to be resilient and to maybe not necessarily go out and yell my opinions everywhere like some people do, but I'm just able to move through my life and take care of my family and meet my own needs and, you know, help the others around me, then if we all can individually do that better, we're all going to
That's
find
kind of how I've been approaching it too, but then I have moments of I should be doing more, I should be doing something. So yeah, I do still struggle with that. I do tend to resonate, and again, because my personality, like what you're saying, it's I think you're both kind of saying that, not personality to pick a fight, right? And to like I haven't shared really my views on social media and things because I don't want to be attacked, and
exactly.
Don't want to upset people, don't want to
and maybe that isn't the platform to share them. Like that's the one thing I think that is negative about social media platforms is I actually don't. I think it's part of the problem. I think it's actually probably a big part of the problem is because like you can't fully explain your soul or like where you're coming from in a post.
And if you can talk with someone, you can usually find common ground.
Absolutely.
And that place where you do connect more than in a short post.
I absolutely.
So those moments where I feel like, oh, I should be doing something. So I'm selective in who I then listen to and who I support because I feel, okay, I like what you're saying, so I'm going to support you. And that feels good because I'm not one to, I'll have moments of like, go on the picket line and do something, and I need to do something. It's like, well, that's not my personality to start that. I'm more the support and stand behind you and help lift you up. So, you know, I choose my people to lift up. But then, so what I do internally, and maybe this sounds woo-woo, but it is what it is if that's how I feel. But I really... in a meditative state is like I send love and I love getting into that feeling because like I feel it through my whole body and I just open up and I do it every morning and I send love to my community. I send love well, first I start with sending love to myself. I send love to my family. I send love to my community, to my country, to the world, to every living being, and which includes animals. I'm a huge animal lover. Every living thing, you know, trees and so on. And I do that every morning and just set that intention of like, I do believe that we are all connected energetically. And so I like starting my morning of just feeling that, and I like my body will just be buzzing.
Can you feel the tingles? Like that's totally exactly it. I think like. Well, when you express that, it's just like, then we all come with you to this place instead of being in an anger place.
Like I am really doing it for, like I feel emotional talking about it because I am really doing it from a place of love. Oh, and I send love to our current leaders and to those who are wanting to come out and make change happen. I send love to them. And I feel like sometimes I'll think in my head like, but Carrie, is that doing anything? But if that's my little piece, I don't know. I really hope it's making a difference.
I think it is so healthy because I go back, and I've gone back through this a lot, to something you say often, and that is get out of your story, right? Like get out of the story that you're telling yourself. What is your story? And work instead to find balance, like come out of your mind and into your body, or just come out of your story. And I think when I'm in this the cycle, the negative cycle. It's like
fight cycle.
Come out of the story, and then that is where I can go into that place of calm, like come out of the story. And I think that you are doing that by your actions every morning. Like you're coming out of the story, and then you're just doing good. And that is.
And when you finish that exercise and do have that experience, what's your next thought? Like, what do you go then do? Like. Do you take better care of yourself? And
yes, I do slip out of it throughout my day.
Because you have to keep living.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I then start to go, because that's after my workout and things, and then I go get ready for my day. And so I am, and then I listen to a podcast of somebody else who inspires me and get new ideas and things. But and then so I do slip out of it through the day, and so I do have to keep constantly reminding myself.
I think what you do in your life, it's actually you curate the information that comes into you. And I think that is an important thing to do in some ways. So yes, we could go down the rabbit hole of this side versus this side, right? But curating what feeds you. And so
just like how things pop up into your feed, the more you look at, the more those things will pop in your feed.
Absolutely.
Your life is like that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And curate. So, like, if you think about when we talk about thoughts, it's like, you know, that we were talking about this earlier this morning, that negative radio station that you first always tune in to the negative station. And maybe we do that just outside of ourselves too, like outside of our mind. Like, are we tuning into the negative?
But I think you get tuned in if your physiology is in that fight or flight state and your cortisol is burning through your body. You are tuned in to those things, and then the thoughts will come, and then the people will come, and the conversations come, and then all this stuff starts like snowballing for you, right? Because your body, by the way of its physiology and its hormones, are tuned to it.
Right.
Totally.
So how do you find the balance between like knowing to make good choices, like in a practical way, to how to vote, how to
because for me, in my own health, it's a really big thing to be able to speak my truth. Because and what if your truth is going to piss people off?
Yeah.
And I'm so afraid of that, or to be, you know, I want everybody to just live together happily, and we're just going to be, you know, we're just going to take care of each other, and it's going to be, but then what about if I feel really strongly about something and I want to voice it? How do you voice it? Where do you voice it? To whom do you voice it to, right? It's tricky. And then am I going to be actually bothering people? So what I've done for some of the issues that I find really important about this, like some of the science that I'm finding and the research that I'm finding that's not on mainstream media, I'm trying to, I mean, what else is there besides social media for a lot of things, right? So trying to post just some of that research that's saying, and I often use the title, if you're interested in this, here's a link to this research. Not everybody should be thinking this. You know, no, I don't, you know, you can, I think there's many ways to get to the place where the vulnerable are supported and people are helped, right?
And I appreciate you doing things like that, because I respect what you say, and I know that you have a very science strong brain where that's not my strength. So for somebody like you, when you post those things, it's like, oh, I do want to listen. Now, when I listen, I will then decide, okay, do I like what they're saying or not? And I have my own, you know, thing to go through that. But I'm very selective of who I listen to. So when someone like you, who I trust, and I know I trust your research and your sciencey brain, so it's like, oh, I'm going to pay attention to when you say something or others that I've chosen to.
And I've had to come up with the intention that my intention is not to make everybody come to the same conclusions about something like masks or something like whatever. The conclusion is less important to me than just providing knowledge and providing insight, because I think that's the thing. If people are making it a decision out of fear, then that's very different than making it out of, okay, I've weighed the pros and cons, I've seen all the evidence, and I decide this is right for me. Then if it's different than what I decide, no problem. But when these decisions are made out of fear for anybody about any aspect of their health, taking a supplement, doing a diet, whatever you pick, if it's out of fear, it's going to have a negative outcome in your life. And so if you can recognize, I'm in such chaos and fear right now, what's my impulse, what am I deciding to do? Then if you can calm yourself down, find your calm, wave the storm, send love, all that stuff, then I think it's going to be a different decision. You might come to something, I need to speak up here about this. I maybe need to support a picket line of something. You know, maybe you don't have to do it in a vulgar way or in a way that doesn't sit with you, but you can be supportive.
I think in terms of communication, exactly, like I love what you're saying, because I do think those moments when you want to have that like back and forth that maybe won't end in a positive way, it is to take that step back and take a moment to breathe and find, okay, where do I
really want here?
What is my intention?
And when you are grounded, that's when you can decide, okay, do I need to take action or not? Is there action? Because I do say that to myself when I get fired up and I need to do something. So then I ground myself first and then say, okay, do I need to take action? And if so, what action is valuable? Or do I need to just trust?
Do I need to
and just
support,
and maybe protect myself and support myself and
let it go.
Let it go.
Do
Oh
I
my
need to let
goodness,
this
so
go?
much of that too.
Yeah. But I found that as I've made some posts or as I've put some things out there in a way that feels very kind and in a way that just feels like I'm trying to inform, I feel so much better. Like I'm like, oh yay, I've been able to, and wherever it goes, it goes. If two people see it, no problem. Like I don't care. It was actually more about me speaking my truth and being able to voice myself, and that's really important.
That's what was just coming up in my brain. That I'm like, ooh, because sometimes you do need to say it too.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
If you shove that down, it's going to take a physical form for you.
But what I find what's really important is if you feel something that needs to be said, maybe first saying it to a trusted source, right? Like I feel safe with you ladies, and there's been times it's like, okay, I kind of want to hash this out a little bit, get it out, and then and that might be enough. That might be all I needed to do. Or I also find sometimes as I speak through things, if I talk through it, I get sparked with an idea of whether it's a do or a don't or a let go, or I get inspiration just by talking it through in a safe environment.
Like to say, okay, I need to do something with this energy that's right here. Is it an action? Is it do I need to go just chill out? Do I need to let it go? Like
Or do kickboxing? Oh, I do kickboxing classes sometimes.
Or work out. Do I need to? Am I angry at the world and not at this political person or whatever? Like maybe it's just an anger at the injustice of the world in general or something.
Well, whenever you have, like, that's what I look at myself. Whenever I have like a fiery reaction, what is the root of it? Because fear, anger, like anger is coming from fear. Something inside me that I'm fearful of. Anger is always that's when you have your most explosive reactions. It's from a seated fear. So,
and that's a physiological thing happening within your body. It's not just in your head. It's
I love those moments, figuring out those triggers when something like pisses me off or fires me up. It's like, oh, I just got triggered. Okay, what was that all about? I love those sometimes and diving deep, and that's where I like getting analytical in my own self and like, oh, I was triggered. Let's dive in.
What a different perspective to take. One thing that I have. One image that I love is it's a little cartoon of an elephant. And and I'll put this up actually, I could do it. And what it is a whole bunch of scientists looking at different parts of the elephant. So one scientist has got the tail and he's saying, it's a rope. And the other scientist is up at the front, with a microscope to the tusk. Oh, it's, I forget what he says. And then one's on the ear and one's on the toe or whatever. And they all have a different assessment of what it is. But if we could just back up and see a bigger picture, then we have a different feeling about the whole thing. None of them are wrong. Right? All those people who are looking at the issue in such a microscopic view, they're not wrong. But it's a
big picture. It's the big
picture. Totally. And one piece of science that absolutely, totally changed how I feel and set me more into a direction of what you were talking about was when I learned that in the beginning of the universe, all the energy of the whole world came out of the size of a green pea. We were all in this tiny, tiny, tiny little tiny thing. That was it. We were all there together. And the whole universe, as scientists know, is just a process of expanding and expanding and expanding. So all the people who've lived anywhere in the world or anywhere in time, we all once were all together.
And I love hearing that stuff because I
was thinking of when you were actually talking about like sending energy out into the world, and then I started to feel it. Then I was taking the idea of quantum physics, right? And I actually once did a lesson, a yoga class about quantum physics, incorporating it in.
Oh, do it for us.
It might go over a lot of people's heads.
But I love quantum physics.
Just that piece of energy that we are all. Energy, like all mass is.
It's atoms, right? It's just, and they're pretty small, right? When you get down to that tiny little bit of it,
So for me, I see science behind that spread of energy, that feeling, and I felt the energy from you, and that may sound woo-woo, but I also think there's science behind it. So that's
what being empathic is, right? Like when you go to the grocery store and you feel everybody scared and mad that you're moving and breathing in the wrong way, you're empathically picking up that negative energy or that fear. But you can do much more with empathically picking up the powerful love, confidence, totally that aligned energy that does way more, makes you better decisions.
Could you imagine if every time before every person before they went into the grocery store, sat in their car and like, okay, got in that, and now I'm going to bring that with me. Oh my goodness.
Positive energy.
That would be amazing. I want to live in that world.
So when I go to that person's grocery cart, I'm just sending that positive energy to them, and they're not going to scowl at me when
Yeah.
It's like, I think a lot of our conversations we're having right now, it comes back to that thing. When you were speaking, I was thinking about our whole theme of like safety and moving out of that. And when we are angry, and that comes from fear, how do we find safety?
Yes.
How do we find that feeling of safety to move forward? And I think your idea of how to root into your positive yourself, like find the positive in you, and then you're in control of that. And every day your manifest for that day, or what your goal for that day is I am going to be positive.
I'm going to refine that
I'm going to
center.
come into that positive center, and I'm just going to spread that.
Yeah.
And
for me, I can't do it just by sitting still.
Really,
like my energy is so intense.
Like you're an energetic person.
Yeah, it's fired up, and my kids reflect that. They're wild.
Yeah.
And when I did your yoga video this week, it was the same thing. When I first got started, I'm like, that inner voice is saying, I don't have time to sit here for this. This is going to take too long. She's like being she's taking way too much time. But because I know this feeling about myself, I know, Amanda, this is exactly what you need.
I'm going to say both sides of that, because maybe you need a different
I think
style
I
of yoga.
need the movement first, because I know that when I do intense physical energy, the endorphin release that comes with that and the headspace that comes with the physiological change from a really good burst of energy allows me to settle back down into that.
And when did you practice it? When did you do this? When did you do the
I started it yesterday and then finished it this morning.
At what time of day though?
Late at night.
You did do it late at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I get fired up at night too, because that's when I watch a lot of scientific stuff. That's when I'm really getting into that.
That's not going to be the time of day for you to do that. That's when it's like when you are ready to like transition to a more passive time. So, and some people can't do that. Some people need the physical activity too quiet.
I think
so that's going to be more sun salutations. You're going to want to gravitate to those.
I do better at those.
They're not for everyone, but they probably are what you need. Like that's the search of finding at the time of your life. And for me, it has changed at different times in my life, different times of the year.
Yes.
So in the summer, I actually teach a much more chill, cool practice because it's hot and people kind of need that, and there's a lot of running around in the summer, so it depends on the time of year. But also the whole heart of why poses came into yoga, so they're called the asanas, the poses. Initially people just used to meditate.
That was just sit around
and then some wise man, I can get into it, but some wise man came along and said, well, it's really hard for people to just sit and meditate.
They're all fired up and
they need the
busy
movement and that flow of breath and movement to bring them into a balanced nervous system. They didn't use that terminology, but basically that's what
now we know what it is. A
balanced nervous system, and once they can kind of bring the nervous system into balance, then they can move into that quietness. So it's a slow draw inward. You can't expect yourself to sit necessarily on the mat and be totally there. It grows with your practice. So at the beginning, when you're in that practice, when you're doing this, you're not there yet.
No, I'm not there yet. And there's a discipline, like you talked about, and a decision to try to get there.
Yes.
And as the movement happens, it does happen better for me. But I think if I were to design it better for me, it would be do that after a more physical activity.
And that's the kind of practice you're going to want to
look
for, is one that is more vinyasa. It's like more of a flow, a vinyasa practice.
I know, because when you do the flow piece and I breathe out while I move my hand, I'm like, there's relief there. Yeah.
And you know what you should do for yourself when you're practicing. And this is what I do in the studio when I'm here. It's like, I love when people don't do what I tell them.
Right.
I know it sounds funny, but I do. So
it means they're listening to their own body and
it's like that somatic inward yoga. It's like she is saying to bring my arms behind. But I feel like taking a deep inhale and reaching to, I love that. I'm like inside so proud.
Oh, that's so good.
They're
listening to themselves.
They're listening to themselves. That is, of anything I'm bringing to them in that session, it's like draw it inward into what you need and what your body needs in that moment. So,
and we'll do it side by side together.
Yeah, I honestly feel pride. Like,
that's
pride
so
before the
good.
fall. Like, I feel like, oh, they're getting it. Like when they do that. And
so cool.
I love it when they do it, or there's a pose and they're like, it's not for me, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to figure that out in their body, but it's like when they're figuring it out in their own body and what's going to feel good. Yeah, I love that. So what I would say to you is, if I am doing something that in a practice that you're like, I need to move faster, move through it faster in that period.
Do 2 of them.
Find
do
your
one.
breath. Find your connection. So what you're trying to do in that time is maybe not follow my pace. That's my pace, what I'm feeling as I'm guiding that practice, and saying, I need a faster pace to come.
I can do that.
And do it. Find your breath is the best thing. Find what is your natural breath to feel. Just the one thing is making sure you're moving out of that shallow breathing, right? Where you're like, I'm still moving through my day in my brain, and I'm still not working to come out of my head. But in any way that you can connect with your body, do that. And that's what I would invite in any practice I'm guiding. And if you were in my studio and I could see you and you're doing it, I would be like,
you'd say it. Exactly.
You go, girl.
And that seems to be like the balance of what we were talking about finding our truth, speaking our truth out loud, or sitting with something and letting it go, what you were talking about with your friends. So like socially and politically and all of that, it's kind of the same thing as what you do in a yoga practice, or in, is being able to find, okay, I want to be connected. I want to honor that you're, I'm in a class with you and you've done this work, and I don't want to be like, saying to you, I don't like what you're doing, right? Like I don't want to upset you, but I also want to be able to find my thing, right? And have you enjoy that with me too, right?
And I think any yoga class, so I know you've mentioned before that you aren't a big fan of going to classes with other people in them.
I think it's for that reason. But
but I think any teacher would tell you, do what is for you, and moving away.
But other people will see me doing weird things.
Like I can tell you, one of I love her teaching, Dora Chan. I'm still in contact. So her name's Dora Chan, and she's one of my yoga teachers. And I went to her class one day, and it was actually a vinyasa hot yoga class. And there's a lot of movement, I was just suddenly overcome with exhaustion. And I went into child's pose, and I stayed in child's pose the entire class.
Because you knew you hit something
I
for
hit
yourself.
Something, and that is what I needed. So I do it, and I give permission to everyone. So afterwards, I did go talk to Dora and just said, I was not having a good day, and that's what I needed. And she's like, I totally knew that, and I honored it, and that was great. So any yoga teacher is going to say that to you when you go to a class. Honor
a good one.
What
I was just thinking that too. Any good yoga teacher.
Honor what your body needs that day. Honor what you need, and it's not just even about your body. It's like how you're feeling, what you need, and you may need to just be in child's pose that entire class. And do that for yourself. Even in your own practice.
And you know what? That goes along with this topic of how are we dealing with the stress of what's going on right now, is exactly what you're just explaining too. Like that can be applied to our day-to-day life.
It can. I maybe need to be a better friend to myself and remember to do that.
I love that. Be a better friend to yourself. So true.
It is hard to do that. I know there was a study that was done that they watched people, they set people up at a table, and the people at the table started verbalizing. It looked like they were talking to each other, so it'd be like me talking to you right now. And I'm saying to you the thoughts that are coming into my head about myself. And then just the reactions of the people at the other tables, like what they did in response to that. But if you think for a day, what you say to yourself in your head, and then you think about how, like taking that out of yourself and saying it to the person you love the most.
Would you say that?
Would you say that to them? And sitting with that, because we would never talk as cruelly to other people. You can still have the same underlying message, but talking to yourself lovingly, understand, because from other people we understand you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. These things may be guiding you to where you're at, but we don't give ourselves the same acceptance.
Self-love practices, that's at the core of that. And I know for myself, like once I spent time and I put myself on a journey to fall in love with myself and really did a strong self-love practice that I carry on now. And it's that helps me through those times of the inner critic. Actually, I'm experiencing the inner critic right now. So like, for example, as we're taking this new venture and I'm trying some new things, which I'm always one to try new things. Like, something shows up and I always like to say, okay, it's showing up for a reason. I'm going to try. What do I have to lose? And it may not work out, but I'm going to try. So here we are in this new venture, and I've said yes to it and very excited about it and moving forward. And I'm trying some new things like video. Video is new to me, and that's been challenging for me. And and then so I do my first video, and I have that inner critic chatting away at me. And so again, just kind of what I was saying before, like, oh, I got triggered, something showed up. All right, let's dive deep. Like, why are you showing up? What's going on? What do you have to, like, are you there for a reason? Is there something that you need to teach me? Or do I need to just overcome it somehow? So, but because I've done a lot of the self-love work.
It's a skill.
It's a skill that I have now that I'm kind of able to say, okay, you showed up. There might be some pieces that I listen to, and then I just have to kind of push through a little bit more and say, you know what, I'm more valuable than that, and I'm going to let this love for myself push through a little bit more and be a little bit louder.
And it took me a long time to get to that place where I would allow myself to move in and actually do something like that self-love thing, because I labeled it as like woo-woo and just like, that's not going to help, and like that's not important. I have to do other things. I have to go on diets. I have to do really strong stuff to help my health. And it took me like a whole bunch of pre-work to get to the place where I would even do that. Like, it took so long, but then it was like, I should have been doing this a long time ago, because it's so simple and so powerful and so at the very core and root of healing is being able to do what you're talking about. But for people who've been challenged by a really big sadness in their life, a loss in their life, who have been had some really tough stuff happen, you get locked in a place where I have to solve this thing first before I'm allowed to go sit outside and love myself or do something as
it doesn't seem
seemingly frivolous or seemingly it doesn't seem it's not going to solve my problem.
To be like, go the regular streams to like through it, whether medical intervention. No, but obviously you need
those
medical intervention
for sure. Yeah.
But I actually, in the end, so I think I had a similar. I grew up in a farm village. My mom was a farm girl. Like, it's not. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment where we were taught to sit and think about.
Feelings.
How do I find myself?
It's a weird language sometimes, right? Yeah,
it is. But it actually is so practical, because I don't think you can truly go out and be authentic and love others and treat others well, truly well, from pure intention, until you actually,
connect it to yourself.
To yourself, till you are in a place where you love all aspects of you're never going to love all aspects of yourself, because you should be continually learning and growing from them, but
the core of
who you are, that you're going to make mistakes, that
and still loving yourself through making mistakes, right?
and finding the parts of your personality, your character that maybe you aren't things that you want to be. And then there's a transition to move out of that. That just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But loving that you're on the journey and that your heart is good and that you want to move forward.
That you're a human like every other human being on the planet.
And we have to remind ourselves of that. And life is hard. Yeah. Life is naturally hard. I find for myself, I have kind of two things right now showing up. So one was, like, as I said about the video, and there was this fear there and the inner critic. And so as I dove into that to help to understand it a little bit more, it was like, okay, that's not primitive. That's kind of new. That's because there's fear of unknown, fear of, putting myself out there and will I be accepted and that kind of thing. And that makes sense when you're on a new venture, right? That's natural. Yeah. And so, okay, so that was there. But then there's another part, and this is what it's more primitive of not feeling like I'm enough. And that's at my core, and that's been with me for a very long time, from things that I learned from a very young age. So that is rearing its ugly head again to me, and it often does. So when the feelings of I'm not enough, because when I had the realization as I'm sitting with this and analyzing as I love to do and doing my little dives, our first live video, I was really nervous. And I'm like, why am I so nervous? And was it and I realized it didn't have anything to do with me, how others were perceiving me. I felt good about that. I felt okay about me putting myself out there. Where my nerves were from, and it comes to not being enough, was you guys and letting you down. It was, I want to make sure that I'm doing good for them. And what if I'm not enough for them? And back to kind of like, am I pulling my weight? And am I doing well for them?
I would tell you that I think I felt that too.
Did you?
Even when I was doing my video, and I've been doing videos on mine now for my own students for 4 months now, and teaching forever. And then it's like, am I enough? Like, is this going to come through enough that it's going to, what I'm trying to do, to resonate with it? Because in video, it sometimes is unforgiving. You have this shot to convey a lot. Like in my classes, which is much more open, is I have a session to convey where they're going in some ways. So, and then I did feel that. So in terms of the video, so there's two parts there. There's like a natural, rational one, that am I conveying enough in this video for what I'm trying to teach? But then the underlying, am I enough? And I would say, it doesn't come to who the audience is, because I don't even know who that will be.
Right. It's back to you.
It's back to our group. Am I doing enough for them? So I think, and that one, Carrie, is actually one that resonates through my life. And it's where perfectionism comes out for me. So I've done a deep dive into that for myself over the years of where does this come from? Because I do have a perfectionist streak. And I can figure a few people who are going to be listening to this that are chuckling right now. Because I do have this perfectionist streak. And in some ways it brings positive things, because it's one of the reasons, like when I know one of my students has like a physical issue, like I will dive deep into how do I help them? What is it? Can I help them? Is it safe for me to help them? And then how do I help them? So I will do a deep dive into that. I take it very seriously. So that is in some ways a positive thing out of perfectionism, because I can help people. But I understand that an underlying piece of that is that also I want to be perfect, because there's an underlying thing is, am I enough just who I am? Am I enough in this current moment with the knowledge I have? Am I enough? It really comes,
I think it does
from there. So it's a choice at that point, like when I'm going there, and I'm really trying to pull myself back a little bit from trying to solve things in some ways and go into that extreme perfectionist route, to find what's healthy for me in doing it. Like, where is it healthy? Because I excessively train in yoga. Enough excessive, but I love it too. I love it too. So it's finding when I'm loving it, or when I'm finding it because I feel that I'm not enough.
I need to prove yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is finding that balance. So it is a struggle of mine as well that I share.
Yeah, and I know I will always have it will show up at different times, and as when it shows up, like, oh, there you are again. Okay, I'm dealing with you. I'm loving you, and then move on.
But I think that just speaks to the point of why we're doing this is because it isn't a like, it's not like people get a university degree that you hang on your wall and you have forever of like,
Right.
I figured out that I'm enough and I never have to go back and feel unworthy again. It's something that, you can know it logically, but that trip down to the heart and that experiencing it physiologically within your body where you get the tingles, that's, a process that you're going to have to do right up to the end. Like, it's just an everyday thing, and it gets easier and easier, and it pops into your head quicker and quicker.
You work through it faster.
You work through it so much faster, instead of just being caught on the roller coaster of fear and anxiety and then just reacting and getting caught at just trying to save yourself from that. You're able to take that fork in the road a whole lot faster, and that's what we mean by building the skills to be able to move yourself forward faster. And there's just this relief in knowing that no matter what I encounter, no matter what piece of news, no matter what person that happens, no matter which grocery store I end up in that's going to be frustrating for me this week or whatever, I do have what it takes to bring myself back to center and to remind myself of not only my worth, but every single human's worth equally. There's just no difference between any human's worth. We're all the same. So I'm included in that too, right? Like, it doesn't, I don't get to exclude myself. That's not okay, right? Every person is. And I think that is part of what our values are here, is just to help people on that process and come to that place of relief of you don't have to work so hard to fix it all and be once and for all over all your fears and all your past and all your stuff. It's this daily process. And that may be sad for people to hear, that it's not this like anybody you've ever heard that's healed from something, when I listen to their journey, they just get to this place where they're okay with checking every day and being able to reset every day.
Well,
it's not.
I think you'd be kidding yourself if you thought, like, I'm just now, I figured all out. I'm good. But what I find encouraging, and even from your story, I'll tell you what I take from it, is that you have tools in your toolbox.
Yes.
And that is kind of how I view what this is. It's
I use that term.
Yes, do you? Yeah, I love it too. Tools in the toolbox, because it's giving you skills so that when you're having one of those days, like we both have experienced and we've articulated here, when you're there, like, what tools do I have? I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to use them.
Because you are an operating, living machine. You're not a painting on the wall that's just there and stagnant. And machines need constant updating and tweaking, and you got to change the oil, and you got to fix stuff, right? It's
and
not
we're
like
choosing to live in the world too. Like we could go live in the mountains somewhere all alone. Like, that's a choice, and we have that choice, and we can do that and just be alone, and then maybe it wouldn't be as difficult. But we're choosing
wear a mask there.
to live here.
Someday
you gotta get in and grapple, doesn't it?
Really?
I
know, right?
Run away.
Except I couldn't, because the community piece. Like, I love people. I love learning from people. I love the energy exchange from people, and I couldn't, like, even now we were talking about emerging from our cocoon. And we liked the cocoon. We did like it for a while.
It's important.
We liked.
You can't do some of that.
You need a retreat the cocoon sometimes.
And then now it's like how we are emerging out of that. And I think that's one of the reasons we chose our theme for July. It's like, how do you safely move out of that? Like, what are ways? And I will admit, like, I make myself do it. I make, in some capacity, like, for example, we've we've started having friends out for social distancing get-togethers out on our patio, right? And it's after we've all been busy right now. It's like some days I'm just like, do I want to go back into my cocoon tonight? And it's like, no, the interaction is important. So it's hard to force myself to go out and do it sometimes, to get to the point where we're having those interactions, reconnecting with people. Now, but after, I always feel that exchange of energy. You always feel so great after you reach out, and
part of the humanness.
Here's what I'm doing with that too, and as a way to deal with the stress too, is I am being selective on who I spend my time with.
Yes.
I want to be around other positive people.
Yes.
I don't want to sit and just mull over and just be angry and sit in that anger.
Yeah.
So I am being selective of, just like I was saying with you, like I appreciate you sharing those things. I respect you. I will listen to follow those things. And there's other people that might post things. It's like, you're really negative.
Yeah.
So I may not resonate with what you're saying, and that's okay, you say that, but that's not for me. And so same with people that I'm choosing to spend my time with, or
just
and
creating
like this
that healthy
community,
boundary.
this community of positive energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.